Have you ever felt like your mind could use a sharper edge, like there's untapped potential just waiting to be unlocked? What if the key to unlocking it wasn't some modern hack, but ancient wisdom refined over centuries? The Stoics thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca weren't just philosophers pondering life's big questions. They were practical strategists, crafting mental tools to build resilience, clarity, and razor-sharp intelligence. And here's the surprising part: their techniques aren't relics of the past. They're just as potent today for anyone looking to outthink distractions, master their focus, and elevate their cognitive game. Over the next 48 strategies, we'll dive into their playbook, each one a tested method to sharpen your mind, from handling information overload to making decisions with unshakable calm. Ready to train your brain like a Stoic? Let's begin. Strategy 1. The discipline of perception. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle is the way." At first glance, that might sound like empty optimism, but the Stoics meant something far more powerful. They weren't suggesting you ignore hardships or pretend difficulties don't exist. Instead, they were masters of perception, the art of seeing every obstacle, every annoyance, even every failure as raw material for growth. Think about the last time you got stuck in traffic, faced a rude colleague, or dealt with a plan going completely off track. Most of us react with frustration, our minds spinning into complaints, but Stoics train themselves to pause and ask, what if this isn't a setback but a setup for something stronger? That delay, a chance to practice patience; that difficult person, a test of your composure. Even failure becomes a lesson, not a defeat. Here's how to put this into action today. Pick one situation that would normally irritate you: a long line at the store, a last-minute cancellation, a critical comment, and mentally reframe it. Ask yourself, how could this help me grow? What skill could I sharpen here? That shift in perspective doesn't just reduce stress, it turns everyday friction into a gym for your mind. Strategy 2. Premeditatio Malorum. The power of negative visualization. Seneca, one of history's wisest Stoics, had a habit that might sound counterintuitive at first. He regularly imagined the worst-case scenarios before they happened. But this wasn't pessimism, it was training. He called it Premeditatio Malorum, Latin for the premeditation of evils. The idea: by mentally rehearsing setbacks before they occur, you strip them of their shock and emotional sting. Picture this: you're about to walk into a high-stakes meeting where tensions could rise. Instead of just hoping for the best, you take a few minutes to consider what could go wrong. Maybe someone reacts defensively, or your proposal gets rejected. Rather than dreading these possibilities, you've already played them out in your mind. The result: you're no longer caught off guard, you're prepared, calm, and ready to adapt. This practice isn't about dwelling on fear. It's about building resilience by facing adversity before it happens. Ancient generals used it before battle. Modern athletes visualize failure to stay composed under pressure, and you can apply it to something as simple as a tough conversation with a friend or an unpredictable workday. Here's a challenge for you. Pick one looming stressor, a deadline, a confrontation, even a trip where things might not go smoothly, and spend just 2 minutes imagining the worst that could reasonably happen. Then ask yourself, how would I handle this if it came to pass? That mental rehearsal doesn't just soften the blow, it gives you a roadmap for staying steady when real challenges arrive. Strategy 3. Voluntary Discomfort. The art of hardening your mind. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-Stoic teacher, had a radical idea: comfort is overrated. In fact, he believed that chasing an easy life makes us weaker, like a muscle that never gets tested. His solution: seek out discomfort on purpose, not as punishment but as training. Today, we live in an age of instant gratification, endless entertainment, climate-controlled homes, meals delivered with a tap. but the Stoics warned that constant comfort dulls our resilience. They practiced what they called voluntary discomfort, fasting to appreciate hunger, walking barefoot to remember hardship, sleeping on the floor to avoid becoming too attached to luxury. This isn't about suffering for its own sake. It's about owning your discomfort before life forces it on you. When you deliberately step into small hardships, you prove to yourself that you can handle them, so when bigger challenges come, you don't panic. You've already built the mental calluses needed to endure. Here's how to apply this ancient hack in modern life. Choose one small, manageable discomfort today. Skip the snooze button and get up immediately. Take a cold shower or go without snacks between meals. Notice the urge to quit and then push just a little further. The goal isn't misery, it's realizing you're tougher than your cravings. As Epictetus put it, difficulties show what men are. Every time you choose the harder path voluntarily, you're rewiring your brain to handle the unexpected with grit instead of fear. Think of it like mental vaccination. A tiny dose of hardship now immunizes you against bigger breakdowns later. And the best part, you start seeing comfort for what it really is, a bonus, not a necessity. That shift alone is a superpower in a world addicted to ease. Strategy 4. The view from above, seeing your life from cosmic heights. Marcus Aurelius had a peculiar habit when stress threatened to overwhelm him. He'd close his eyes and zoom out. Not just to a bird's eye view of his problems, but to the scale of continents, planets, even the infinite expanse of the cosmos. He called this the view from above, and it was his secret weapon against petty anxieties and ego-driven conflicts. Here's why it works. Imagine you're simmering over a rude email or a colleague's snide remark. Now mentally pull the camera back. See your office building from space, a tiny dot on a spinning planet. That feud, a speck in time. The Stoics realized that most of what frazzles us daily wouldn't even register from this vantage point. It's not about dismissing your feelings, but realizing how much energy we waste on what won't matter in the grand scheme. Modern science backs this up. Astronauts who have seen Earth from orbit often report the overview effect, a profound shift in perspective that melts away national borders and personal grudges. You don't need a rocket ship to harness this. Try it next time you're stuck in a loop of resentment or fear. Pause and ask, how would this feel if I were looking down from the moon? Suddenly, that parking ticket or social media slight loses its grip. For a practical drill, pick one current worry, a financial hiccup, a strained relationship, and mentally fast forward a year. Then a decade, then a century. Chances are what feels urgent now will fade into irrelevance. That's not pessimism, it's liberation. As Marcus scribbled in his journal, keep reminding yourself of the way things are and of what kind they are. When you see your life as both fleeting and interconnected, trivial dramas stop hijacking your peace. This isn't about becoming indifferent. It's about saving your mental energy for what truly deserves it, because from the stars, even Mount Everest is just a wrinkle on a pebble. And when you grasp that, you stop sweating the small stuff with superhero calm. Strategy 5. The Dichotomy of Control, mastering what's yours to command. Epictetus opens his famous Enchiridion with a line that cuts through life's noise like a scalpel. Some things are up to us and some are not. Simple, yes. Obvious, maybe. But how many of us actually live by this division? The Stoics called this the Dichotomy of Control, a mental filter separating what you can influence from what you can't. And here's the twist. Most suffering comes from blurring the two. Picture this. You're stressed about an upcoming job review. The Stoic approach: split that anxiety in half. Can you control whether your boss likes you? No. But can you control how prepared you are, how diligently you've worked, how you respond to feedback? Absolutely. Wasting energy on the uncontrollable is like shouting at the rain. It changes nothing but drains you. Meanwhile, the controllable, your effort, your attitude, is where real power lies. Modern life bombards us with fake control, endless news cycles, other people's opinions, even weather apps we check obsessively. The result, we feel responsible for things far beyond our reach. But Stoics train themselves to ask one clarifying question. Is this mine to solve? If not, they mentally hand it back to the universe like returning a misdelivered package. No guilt, no struggle, just focus redirected to where it actually makes a difference. Here's your challenge. Grab a paper and draw a line down the center. On the left, list 3 things weighing on you right now: traffic, a friend's choices, tomorrow's stock prices. On the right, note what is yours to command: your patience, your boundaries, your next action step. That left column, it's not your burden to carry, as Epictetus reminds us. Happiness and freedom begin with one principle: some things are within your control and some are not. When you stop conflating the two, you'll find reserves of energy you never knew you had because you're no longer spending them on the unchangeable. This isn't passivity. It's precision. Think of a sailor who doesn't rage against the wind but adjusts the sails. By focusing only on your sphere of control, you don't just reduce stress, you amplify your impact where it counts. Strategy 6. The clarity of ink: how Stoic journaling sharpens your mind. Seneca ended each day with a ritual so simple, yet so transformative that modern science now confirms its power. He picked up a pen. In his moral letters, he describes nightly reviews where he'd ask himself, what did I do well today? Where did I let myself down? This wasn't self-criticism, it was calibration. The Stoics understood something we often forget. Thoughts stay tangled until we pour them onto paper. Consider how often frustration or indecision lingers simply because we haven't processed it. Like a cluttered room, the mind becomes harder to navigate when left untended. Writing forces clarity. It's why Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, essentially his private journal, remains a masterpiece of self-awareness. When you articulate emotions in ink, you're no longer swept away by them. You become the observer, spotting patterns, separating impulses from intentional actions. Here's the modern twist: you don't need poetic prose or hours of introspection. Try this 3-day experiment inspired by Seneca's method. Each night, answer just 3 questions. 1. What's one thing I handled with Stoic calm today? Acknowledge progress. 2. When did I react impulsively, and what could I have done differently? Spot growth areas without self-judgment. 3. What's one small step I'll take tomorrow to strengthen my virtues? Design the next move. The magic happens in the rewriting of your experiences. A disagreement shifts from "they were so unfair" to "I could have listened first." Anxiety about a project becomes "here's how I'll prepare." Like a blacksmith tempering steel, journaling hammers raw emotions into tools you can actually use. Neuroscience backs this up. Studies show journaling reduces stress hormones and boosts problem solving by activating the prefrontal cortex. But the Stoics didn't need brain scans to know this. They saw writing as mental weightlifting. As Seneca put it, the unreflected life is not worth living. Your pen is the chisel that sculpts self-mastery, one honest sentence at a time. So tonight, before sleep claims you, steal 5 minutes with a notebook, not to record events but to excavate their meaning, because the difference between reacting and responding often lies in the space between thought and page. And that's where wisdom begins. Strategy 7. The gift of loss: how imagining absence deepens presence. We live most of our lives in a strange paradox, clinging tightly to what we have, yet only truly valuing it once it's gone. The Stoics flipped this script with a practice both unsettling and liberating: negative visualization, not as a morbid fixation, but as a lens to sharpen gratitude while there's still time. Seneca captured it perfectly in On the Shortness of Life. You act like mortals in all you fear and like immortals in all you desire. Here's the exercise in its rawest form. Pause right now and think of someone or something you cherish. A partner's laugh, your morning coffee ritual, the ability to take a walk without pain. Now close your eyes and imagine it vanished tomorrow. That ache in your chest, that's the Stoic alarm clock ringing to remind you, this exists now, don't wait to honor it. Ancient philosophers weren't the only ones who understood this. Modern psychology calls it mental contrasting, a visualizing loss to heighten present moment appreciation. Studies show people who practice it report deeper relationships, heightened joy in small pleasures, and even stronger immune responses. The mechanism is simple. By brushing against impermanence, we stop taking the mundane for granted. Try this tonight before bed. Pick one ordinary blessing, the warmth of your sheets, a text thread with a friend, the hum of your fridge, yes, even that. Spend 30 seconds picturing life without it, then open your eyes. Notice how the room feels different. That's not sadness, it's clarity. As Seneca wrote, he robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. By rehearsing loss, you disarm its sting and uncover the hidden brilliance of the ordinary. This isn't about dwelling on darkness, it's about using shadows to make the light visible. When you routinely ask, what if this were gone, you stop postponing joy until some perfect future. You start living it now because now is all we're guaranteed. And that realization, it turns daily life into a series of quiet celebrations. Strategy 8. Ammaphati, the radical art of loving what happens. There's a strange secret hidden in the Stoic approach to life's twists and turns. What if the key to contentment isn't avoiding hardship, but falling in love with it? Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about this idea, but it was Friedrich Nietzsche who later gave it its powerful name. Ammaphati, Latin for love of fate. Not just accepting what happens, but embracing it with genuine enthusiasm. Think of it like this: when a sculptor chips away at marble, each strike might seem destructive. But the artist doesn't resist the blows, they welcome them, knowing they're necessary to reveal the masterpiece within. The Stoics saw life the same way. That job loss, it might carve space for a bolder path. That rejection, it could sand down your ego to reveal truer strengths. Even pain becomes a chisel in the hands of fate, shaping you into someone more resilient, more adaptable, more alive. Modern psychology echoes this ancient insight. Studies on post-traumatic growth show that people who reframe adversity as formative, rather than purely destructive, consistently report higher levels of creativity, deeper relationships, and renewed purpose. The difference isn't what happens to them, it's how they choose to see it. Here's how to practice this today. Pick one recent disappointment, a missed opportunity, a plan that fell through, and ask, how could this exact situation be exactly what I needed? Maybe that failed project taught you a skill you'll use for years. Perhaps that heartbreak cleared space for a more aligned connection. Nietzsche put it bluntly, my formula for greatness in a human being is Ammaphati. That one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. This isn't about naive positivity. It's about recognizing that life's curriculum often arrives in disguise. When you stop fighting the plot twists and start trusting the narrative, setbacks lose their sting. They become invitations to grow, to pivot, to discover depths you couldn't have accessed on an easier path. So try this for the next week. Each time something doesn't go your way, whisper 2 words, good. Thanks, not as sarcasm, but as a reminder that fate might know your potential better than you do. Because the surest way to drain suffering of its power is to greet it not as an enemy, but as the strictest and wisest of teachers. Strategy 9. Objective judgment, seeing through the storm of emotion. Marcus Aurelius once scrawled a line in his private journal that cuts through confusion like a scalpel. Take away your opinion about it, and you take away the complaint, take away the complaint, and you take away the hurt. What he's describing isn't cold detachment, it's objective judgment, the Stoic superpower of stripping away emotional noise to see reality as it is, not as our fears or desires distort it. Picture this: someone critiques your work, your pulse jumps, your face flushes instantly, the mind spins stories, they're undermining me, they don't get it. I'm a failure, but pause. What if you could dissect that feedback like a scientist? The Stoics trained themselves to ask, is this fact or interpretation? The words spoken, fact, the meaning you assigned, optional. That gap between event and reaction is where freedom lies. We do this all the time without realizing it. A friend cancels plans and we leap to, they don't value me, instead of, maybe traffic's bad. A project stalls and we assume I'm incompetent rather than, this is phase 2 of 5. Emotional bias acts like fog on a windshield. It obscures the road ahead until we consciously wipe it clean. Here's your challenge: pick one irritation from today, a snarky comment, a delayed train, and dissect it with Stoic objectivity. Ask 1. What exactly happened? Just the raw facts. 2. What story am I telling myself about it? The emotional spin. 3. What's a more neutral explanation? The Stoic alternative. You'll often find the sting comes from your interpretation, not the event itself. Like Marcus wrote, the universe is change, life is opinion. When you separate what is from what you assume, you reclaim agency over your peace. Critics become coaches, delays turn into breathing room, and obstacles. They're just raw material until you decide otherwise. This isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about choosing which emotions serve you. Because clarity, the Stoics knew, isn't the absence of storms. It's the ability to see the sky behind the clouds. Strategy 10. The inner citadel, fortifying your mind against chaos. There's a striking passage in Meditations where Marcus Aurelius describes the mind as a fortress, an inner citadel that no external force can breach without your permission. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. The Stoics believed true resilience isn't about avoiding storms, but about constructing an unassailable refuge within yourself, where reason and calm persist even when the world erupts into chaos. Compare that to modern life, where our attention is fractured by endless notifications, our moods hijacked by algorithms, and our peace eroded by the slightest inconvenience. Fragility isn't a flaw, it's the default setting in a culture that prizes comfort over grit. But the Stoics offered an alternative, a mental stronghold built brick by brick through disciplined thought. Here's how to start constructing yours today. Close your eyes for just 10 seconds and picture a fortress. Its walls are made of your deepest principles: truth, courage, self-control. The gatekeeper, your judgment, deciding what thoughts and influences are worthy of entry. Inside, a quiet courtyard where you retreat to observe emotions without being ruled by them. This isn't escapism, it's sovereignty. Visualization alone isn't enough, though. The Stoics reinforced their citadel with 3 daily practices. 1. Guarding the gates before reacting to criticism or gossip. Ask, does this deserve space in my inner world? If not, let it pass like a stranger at the gates. 2. Storing provisions. Arm yourself with reminders of what you control. Epictetus in Cyrenian was essentially a manual for mental self-defense. 3. Repairing breaches when anger or envy slips through. Don't despair. Reflect post-battle like Seneca reviewing his day to strengthen weak points. The beauty of this practice: no external crisis can destroy what you've built inwardly. Lose your job, the citadel stands. Face betrayal, its walls hold firm. As Marcus wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Try this tonight. Journal one breach, a moment today when negativity stormed your defenses, and script a Stoic response for next time. Write it as if advising a trusted friend. Over time, those words become your fortress's foundation, because resilience isn't about avoiding the siege. It's about knowing the enemy can't scale your walls unless you lower the drawbridge. This isn't isolation, it's invincibility, the kind that lets you engage fully with the world because you've already secured your peace. And in an age of endless distraction, that's not just wisdom. It's rebellion. Strategy 11. Memento Mori, the life-changing power of remembering death. Most cultures shy away from discussing death, treating it like a morbid taboo. But the Stoics did something radical. They placed it at the center of daily reflection. Memento Mori, Latin for remember you must die, wasn't about fear. It was their most potent tool for waking up to life. Seneca put it bluntly in his letters, "You act as if you were destined to live forever, no matter how much you waste the day." Here's the paradox: acknowledging life's brevity doesn't shrink your world, it sharpens it. Imagine holding an hourglass where the sand represents your time. Watching it flow wouldn't paralyze you, it would make every grain count. That's the Stoic shift. Procrastination thrives on the illusion of endless tomorrows. But when you internalize that this conversation, this project, this moment with someone you love could be the last of its kind, hesitation evaporates. Modern research validates this. Studies on terminality awareness, the gentle reminder of mortality, show it reduces trivial distractions and amplifies focus on meaningful goals. People who reflect on death often report stronger relationships, bolder career moves, and deeper appreciation for ordinary moments, not because they're morbid, but because they've stopped pretending they're immortal. Try this tonight. Ask yourself one question Seneca posed to his students. What would I stop or start doing today if I knew this year was my last? Not as a hypothetical, but as a lens to reveal misplaced priorities. That argument you're clinging to, the dream you've sidelined, the apology you've postponed, death strips away the excuses, leaving only what's alive with urgency. This isn't about grim fixation, it's about liberation. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say. When you stop deferring joy and purpose to some distant someday, life doesn't feel shorter. It feels richer because the shadow of the end isn't a threat. It's the light that makes the present visible. So let death be your compass, not your curse. The Stoics knew the awareness of an ending isn't just sobering. It's the spark that ignites a life lived without regret. Strategy 12. The discipline of silence, sharpening your mind by restraining your tongue. Epictetus issued a challenge that still stings centuries later. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. The Stoics weren't just advocating politeness, they saw strategic silence as mental armor. In a world where everyone's competing to be heard, withholding words isn't weakness. It's a way to reclaim focus, dodge drama, and observe truths that chatter obscures. Think about the last time you jumped into a heated debate or gossip session. The adrenaline rush fades fast, often leaving regret or worse, unnecessary conflict. Ancient philosophers knew this trap well. Gossip, complaints, and knee-jerk opinions aren't just noisy, they're mental clutter that weakens discernment. Every word you don't say saves energy for the ones that truly matter. Here's how to train this muscle for one day. Experiment with intentional silence during low-stakes interactions. When coworkers vent about the boss, simply nod instead of adding fuel. When a friend shares superficial drama, listen deeply but resist piling on. Notice how much mental space opens up when you're not preparing your next line or feeding petty narratives. As Epictetus warned, if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. This isn't about suppressing your voice, it's about curating it. Mindful listening has a ripple effect. You'll catch nuances others miss, respond with precision instead of reflex, and project calm in chaos. naval commander and Stoic enthusiast James Stockdale credited his survival as a POW to this very skill. He listened more than he spoke, conserving energy for critical moments. Try today's challenge. In 3 conversations, pause 3 full seconds before replying. Those silent gaps act like filters, straining emotional reactions from thoughtful responses. You'll find that silence isn't empty, it's where wisdom gathers its strength, because the sharpest minds aren't always the loudest. They're the ones who know when to let quiet do the talking. Strategy 13. Cognitive distancing, the art of stepping back from your thoughts. There's a moment in Meditations where Marcus Aurelius delivers a line so sharp it slices through our mental noise. The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts. But here's the catch: Stoics didn't just have thoughts, they learned to watch them like clouds passing across the sky. This is cognitive distancing, the practice of separating yourself from impulsive reactions so you can respond with clarity instead of chaos. Picture this: someone cut you off in traffic. Heat rushes to your face, your grip tightens on the wheel, your brain screams, "How dare they?" That reaction isn't you. It's a spark in the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. The Stoics trained themselves to insert a pause between spark and explosion. Marcus called thoughts just impressions, not orders to obey, but data to evaluate. Modern psychology confirms this ancient hack. Therapists teach clients to label emotions. I notice I'm feeling anger, a simple act that activates the prefrontal cortex, dialing down the emotional storm. When you say, I am frustrated, you're fused with the feeling, but shift to, I notice frustration arising, and suddenly you're the observer, not the hostage. Here's how to practice this today. Next time irritation flares, try the Stoic 2-step. 1. Name it. Whisper exactly what's happening in your body and mind. Tight shoulders. Racing thoughts. This is anger. 2. Question it. Ask, is this reaction serving me? That tiny gap between trigger and response is where freedom lies. Anger management is just the start. Apply this to anxiety spirals. I notice I'm catastrophizing. Envy, I'm comparing again. Or even joy, this pleasure feels fleeting. By stepping back, you don't suppress emotions, you master them. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it that matters. An interpretation requires space to breathe. Think of your mind as a theater. Cognitive distancing pulls you out of the front row, where the drama feels real, and into the balcony, where you see the stage lights and script for what they are. The play might continue, but now you know you're not the character. You're the audience, wise enough to clap or walk out. Strategy 14. The Art of Subtraction, less as the path to more. Seneca wrote a letter that feels startlingly modern, one where he scoffs at the wealthy Romans of his time, drowning in silks and feasts yet perpetually unsatisfied. It is not the man who has too little, he observed, but the man who craves more who is poor. The Stoics didn't just preach simplicity, they practiced subtraction as a form of mental sharpening. Not deprivation, but liberation, clearing the clutter so wisdom and focus could flourish. Consider how much of modern exhaustion comes not from doing too little, but from choosing too much. Endless tabs open on your browser, calendars packed with obligations you barely remember agreeing to, a phone buzzing with demands that aren't yours to solve. The Stoic remedy: ruthlessly prune what doesn't serve your purpose. Luxury, they argued, isn't just gold and palaces, it's the illusion that more options equal more freedom. In truth, every unnecessary commitment is a chain. Digital minimalism is the obvious starting point. Try this: delete one app that fragments your attention, yes, even that addictive game. But go deeper, subtract mental clutter too. That grudge you rehearse daily, the hypothetical disasters you play on loop, those are just as draining as a crowded inbox. Marcus Aurelius modeled this in Meditations, writing, Discard your misperceptions, stop being jerked like a puppet, limit yourself to the present. Here's your challenge this week: eliminate one distraction, not temporarily but permanently. Unsubscribe from the newsletter you never read. Decline the meeting that could be an email. Silence the notifications that hijack your mornings. Then, observe the space that opens up. As Seneca noted, until we have begun to go without them, we fail to realize how unnecessary many things are. This isn't about living sparsely, it's about making room for what truly enriches you. Like a sculptor revealing a statue by chipping away marble, every subtraction uncovers more of you. And in a world obsessed with accumulation, that's a rebellion worth waging. Strategy 15. The dawn discipline: crafting your morning mindset before the sun crested over Rome. Marcus Aurelius was already awake, not scrolling, not rushing, but sitting quietly with his journal, steeling himself for the day ahead. His words from Meditations reveal the heart of this ritual. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. This wasn't poetic musing, it was tactical preparation. The Stoics knew that how you start the day shapes how you meet the day. Modern life often begins with chaos: alarm slaps, notifications flood in, and before your feet hit the floor, you're already reacting. Contrast that with the Stoic alternative: 5 intentional minutes to anchor your mind before the waves come. Think of it like stretching before a sprint. You wouldn't run a race cold, so why launch into your day without priming your clarity? Here's how to adapt Marcus' ancient practice to your modern life. 1. The pause before reaching for your phone. Sit upright even for 60 seconds and take 3 deep breaths. This simple act signals to your nervous system you're not in crisis mode yet. 2. The preview: mentally map the day's key events. Ask what challenges might arise. Not to dread them, but to rehearse calm responses. Marcus visualized irritations, crowds, rude people, so they wouldn't catch him off guard. 3. The anchor: choose one Stoic principle to carry with you. Maybe it's "this too shall pass" for a stressful meeting, or "I control my effort, not outcomes" before a big presentation. The magic isn't in grand gestures, it's in the consistency of showing up for your mind first. Studies on morning routines show that even brief moments of intentionality reduce cortisol spikes and boost focus, but the Stoics didn't need data to prove it. They felt the difference between days begun by design and days hijacked by default. Your challenge tomorrow: set your alarm 7 minutes early. Use 5 for this ritual and 2 to simply be. No productivity hacks, no frantic planning, just a silent pact with yourself to meet whatever comes with eyes open and spirit steady. Because as Seneca wrote, every new day is a new life. And how you greet it determines whether you'll live that life or just endure it. Strategy 16. Evening reflection: the Stoic practice of daily review as the day winds down and the world grows quiet. There's an ancient ritual that transforms ordinary nights into classrooms for wisdom. Seneca, in his Moral Letters, describes how he ended each evening with a simple but profound habit. He interrogated himself, not with harsh judgment, but with the calm precision of a craftsman inspecting his tools. What bad habit did I curb today? How am I better? Were my actions just? These weren't idle questions. They were his way of turning daily life into deliberate training. Think of your mind like a garden. Without regular tending, weeds take root unnoticed: small resentments, unchecked impulses, missed opportunities to act with courage. The Stoic evening review isn't about self-criticism, it's about cultivation. By examining the day's events with quiet honesty, you spot patterns invisible in the heat of the moment. That snappish reply to a loved one, a sign you need more patience. The project you avoided, a nudge toward discipline. Even small wins: holding your tongue, choosing kindness, become milestones when you pause to acknowledge them. Here's how to adopt Seneca's ritual for 3 nights. 1. The 3 questions: light a candle or open a notebook and ask, where did I act with virtue today? Courage, temperance, wisdom, when did I fall short, and what would a wiser version of me have done? What's one lesson I'll carry into tomorrow? 2. The unblinking witness review without drama. No guilt, no ego, just facts, like Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations. No surplus words or unnecessary deeds. 3. The seed for tomorrow. End with one intentional commitment. Not a vague goal like be better, but something concrete. I'll listen fully before responding, or I'll tackle the hardest task first. Modern psychology calls this processing the day, and studies link it to faster emotional recovery and improved decision-making. But the Stoics didn't need data. They knew that reflection turns experience into insight. Without it, days blur together and growth happens by accident. With it, every sunset becomes a chance to refine your character. Try this tonight. Steal 10 minutes before bed. No screens, no distractions, and let your day pass before your mind's eye like scenes from a film. Don't just recount events, mine them for meaning. As Seneca reminds us, the unreflected life isn't just unexamined, it's unlived. Because when you close the day with purpose, you don't just sleep. You evolve. Strategy 17. Controlled breathing. The Stoic anchor in stormy seas. There's a reason Marcus Aurelius scribbled, "Take a deep breath," in his private journal, long before modern science confirmed its power. The Stoics didn't just see breathing as automatic biology, they treated it as a lever for the mind. When Seneca faced anger, Epictetus confronted anxiety, or Zeno navigated betrayal, they all turned to the same tool: purposeful breath. Not as mystical ritual, but as a physiological reset button hardwired into every human body. Here's what they understood: emotions aren't just thoughts, they're physical states. Your jaw clenches before you register anger. Your chest tightens before anxiety floods your awareness. But breathing bridges the gap. Slow, deliberate breaths activate the vagus nerve, a neural highway that signals your nervous system to shift from fight or flight to rest and digest. The ancients didn't have fMRI scans, but they knew this truth instinctively. Control the breath and you steer the mind. Let's put this to work with the 4-7-8 technique, adapted for modern Stoics. 1. Inhale deeply for 4 seconds, not just into your chest, but filling your diaphragm like a balloon. Imagine drawing in clarity with each breath. 2. Hold for 7 seconds. This isn't a test of endurance, but a pause to intercept the emotional spiral. As Epictetus advised, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. 3. Exhale for 8 seconds, release the tension, the frustration, the mental chatter. Picture it dissolving like smoke in wind. Try it right now with a hypothetical stressor. Imagine someone cuts in front of you in line. Feel the heat rise. Now apply the rhythm. 4, 7, 8. Notice how the mental grip loosens. That's not avoidance, it's intervention. The Stoics called this such attention to the present moment. By anchoring in breath, you create space to choose your response instead of being hijacked by reaction. This isn't just ancient wisdom. Harvard studies show paced breathing lowers blood pressure as effectively as some medications. Navy SEAL use breath control to stay calm under gunfire, and you can deploy it before a difficult call, during a child's tantrum, or the moment overwhelm threatens to capsize your focus. Because breath is more than oxygen. It's the tether that pulls you back from the edge of impulse to the solid ground of reason. As Marcus reminded himself, the mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. And sometimes that conversion begins with something as simple as a single, steady breath. Strategy 18. The guiding star of role models learning through example. Epictetus dropped a truth bomb that still echoes through the centuries. If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. But here's the catch: he didn't expect you to figure it all out alone. The Stoics understood something neuroscience now confirms: we learn best by emulation. Surround yourself with minds sharper than yours, and their virtues rub off like ink transferred between pressed pages. History's greatest Stoics didn't operate in a vacuum. Marcus Aurelius had his mentor Rusticus, whose relentless honesty cut through imperial flattery. Seneca quoted Epictetus despite their philosophical differences, proving wisdom transcends labels. And Epictetus, born a slave, became a teacher whose students carried his lessons into the world. Role models aren't just inspirations, they're living blueprints for how to navigate adversity with grace. But this isn't about ancient history. Modern exemplars walk among us. Think of Nelson Mandela, who studied Stoicism during his imprisonment and emerged without bitterness. Or James Stockdale, the Navy pilot who credited Epictetus' teachings for surviving 7 years as a POW. Even fictional heroes like Atticus Finch or real-world leaders like Angela Merkel demonstrate Stoic calm under fire. The common thread: they all practiced virtue under pressure, not just preached it. Here's how to activate this strategy today. 1. Audit your influences. Spend 5 minutes listing whose voices dominate your mental space. Are they elevating your character or feeding your fears, as Epictetus warned? The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you. 2. Study the greats. Pick one historical figure, Marcus, Seneca, or modern icons like Viktor Frankl, and dissect how they responded to crises. Not just their victories, but their stumbles, because resilience is forged in recovery, not perfection. 3. Spot hidden mentors, that coworker who stays composed during chaos. The friend who radiates gratitude despite hardships. Their daily choices are masterclasses in Stoicism. Your challenge tonight: journal about one person, real or historical, whose traits you'd like to download into your own life. Then pinpoint one small action to mirror them tomorrow. Maybe it's pausing like Marcus before reacting, or adopting Seneca's habit of nightly reflection. Progress doesn't demand originality, just the humility to learn from those who have walked the path before you, because mentorship isn't about idol worship. It's about standing on the shoulders of giants to see farther than you could alone. And in a noisy world, the right role models don't just guide you, they help you hear your own wisdom beneath the static. Strategy 19. Delayed response: the power of pausing between stimulus and action. Seneca, who wrote an entire book on taming anger, offered a strategy so simple yet transformative that it still stings with relevance. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. He wasn't talking about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. Instead, he prescribed a momentary gap, a breath, a step back between the spark of provocation and the blaze of reaction. In that tiny space, he argued, lies the difference between a life ruled by impulses and one guided by wisdom. Consider how often modern life undermines this practice. Social media rewards knee-jerk hot takes, traffic lights turning red, trigger horn blasts before thoughts even form. We've trained ourselves to mistake speed for strength, when in truth, immediacy often means surrendering control. The Stoics saw this clearly. Reacting without pause isn't power. It's permission for external events to hijack your inner peace. Here's the neuroscience behind Seneca's insight. When provoked, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, floods your body with stress hormones in milliseconds. But your prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason, takes a few critical seconds to catch up. That delay isn't a glitch, it's an invitation. By inserting even a brief pause, you create a buffer where choice replaces reflex. Try this today. The next time someone cuts you off, sends a frustrating email, or says something that makes your pulse spike, do nothing. Literally, count to 10 silently, not as a passive wait, but as an active reclaiming of agency. Notice how the initial heat begins to dissipate. As Seneca observed, anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. That pause isn't weakness, it's the ultimate power move. For a deeper drill, keep a tally for one day, marking each time you could have reacted but chose to pause instead. No grand gestures, just small victories where you let the wave of emotion crest and fall without crashing into action. Over time, those pauses add up to something radical, the quiet confidence of someone who decides how to respond rather than being dragged along by the whims of circumstance. Because mastery isn't about never feeling anger or annoyance, it's about no longer being their puppet, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is nothing at all. Just long enough to remember who's really in charge. Strategy 20. Indifference to praise, the freedom of creating without applause. Marcus Aurelius once jotted a private reminder that cuts through our modern obsession with approval. It's silly to refuse praise from others out of pride, but foolish to accept it as truth. The Stoics weren't against kindness or encouragement, but they spotted a dangerous trap. When your sense of worth becomes tied to external validation, you hand over the reins of your happiness to strangers. And in today's world, where likes, shares, and follow counts masquerade as measures of worth, this ancient insight feels more urgent than ever. Think about the last time you hesitated to post something until you tweaked it for maximum appeal. Or the flicker of disappointment when a project you poured yourself into didn't get the reaction you hoped for. That's the trap of praise dependency. It turns creativity into performance and joy into a numbers game. The Stoics proposed a radical alternative: create for the act itself, not the applause that may or may not follow. Modern psychology reveals why this is so hard. Dopamine hits from social media validation light up the same brain regions as physical rewards, but the Stoics recognized this craving for praise as a form of slavery. Seneca warned his students, "The crowd may hiss or cheer, neither should move you an inch from your purpose." True mastery, he argued, comes when you can look at your work and say, "This fulfills me, regardless of who notices." Here's your challenge: create something this week: a sketch, a journal entry, a meal, even a rearranged shelf. And don't share it. Sit with the quiet satisfaction of having done it for its own sake. Notice the urge to seek validation, and then let it pass like a weather pattern. As Marcus wrote, "The applause of the many is as meaningless as the clattering of hooves." When you untether your worth from others' opinions, you're free to create and live with bold authenticity. This isn't about rejecting praise when it comes. It's about no longer needing it to feel whole. Because the most profound work often happens in the shadows, where the only audience that matters is the one looking back at you in the mirror. And that's a freedom no algorithm can measure. Strategy 21. Indifference to criticism, the art of standing unshaken. Epictetus, who endured slavery before becoming one of history's most revered philosophers, had a blunt reminder for his students. If someone told you that others were speaking ill of you, don't defend yourself but reply, "Obviously, they don't know my other faults, or they'd have mentioned those too, at first glance." It sounds like self-deprecating humor, but beneath the wit lies a profound truth. The Stoics didn't see criticism as something to fear, avoid, or even rebut. Instead, they treated it like weather: unpredictable, often unpleasant, but never personal. Here's why this mindset matters today. Think about the last time you hesitated to share an idea, post online, or take a creative risk because what if someone criticizes it? That fear isn't just discomfort, it's a thief of potential. Modern psychology confirms that our brains are wired to overvalue negative feedback, a survival relic called negativity bias. But the Stoics hacked this instinct by reframing criticism as data, not verdicts. Someone's disapproval might reveal their values, biases, or moods, but it rarely defines your worth. Let's apply this with a practical exercise. Imagine you're giving a presentation, and afterward, an audience member dismisses your ideas with "that's unrealistic." Most people default to defense mode, explaining, arguing, or worse, internalizing the jab. Now try Epictetus' alternative. Pause, then respond with "tell me more. What specifically feels unrealistic to you?" This does three things. 1. It depersonalizes the critique, turning it into dialogue instead of battle. 2. It exposes whether the criticism is substantive or just reflexive negativity. 3. It keeps you anchored in curiosity rather than ego. Public speaking is just one arena. The same principle applies to online trolls. Interesting perspective, thanks for sharing. Tough feedback at work. What would make this stronger? Or even family judgments. I hear you, let me think on that. Grace isn't about agreeing with unfair critiques. It's about refusing to let them hijack your peace. For a deeper drill, try this. Recall one piece of criticism that stung recently. Now, mentally thank the critic, not because they were right, but because they handed you a mirror. Ask, does this hold any truth I can grow from? If yes, adapt. If no, let it pass like a stranger's cough on a train. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own." Mastering indifference to criticism doesn't mean becoming stone. It means building a filter, one that catches gold nuggets of improvement while letting the dust of others' projections fall away. Because when you stop conflating feedback with identity, you unlock a rare freedom, the courage to create, speak, and live without begging the world for permission. Strategy 22. The Stoic pause, the space between reaction and mastery. Marcus Aurelius left us a quiet but revolutionary idea in his journals. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. At its core, Stoicism isn't about eliminating emotions. It's about reclaiming the freedom to decide how they shape your actions. And that freedom lies in the pause, not a dramatic freeze, but a conscious sliver of silence where you step back from the heat of the moment and ask, how does the best version of me respond here? Picture this: you've just received a terse email from a colleague, one that makes your fingers twitch over the keyboard, itching to fire back a defense. Or maybe your child spills paint across the floor and your first instinct is to snap. These moments aren't just tests of patience, they're opportunities to exercise what the Stoics called proherses, your faculty of choice. That split second where you don't react on autopilot, that's where character is forged. Modern neuroscience reveals why this works. When triggered, our brains default to well-worn pathways, habits of anger, defensiveness, or frustration. But the pause acts like a detour sign, redirecting neural traffic toward more reasoned routes. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about intercepting it before it hijacks your behavior. Here's how to train this skill today. 1. The email drill. Next time a message sparks irritation, set a timer for 5 minutes. Walk away, stretch, even write a draft reply, then delete it. The act of waiting disrupts the reaction loop. 2. Parenting or patience. Pause when frustration flares. Drop your shoulders and take one slow breath before speaking. That tiny gap can transform a scolding into a teachable moment. 3. The day of pauses. Pick a day to insert intentional delays before any reaction. Social media comments, traffic annoyances, even choosing what to eat. Notice how often impulses fade when deprived of instant fuel. The Stoics knew something we often forget. Haste is the enemy of wisdom. As Epictetus put it, no great thing is created suddenly. Neither is a great character. Those micro-pauses might feel insignificant, but stacked over time, they build something unshakable. A mind that responds instead of reacts, that chooses instead of chases. So try it. Let your next trigger be an invitation not to anger, but to autonomy. Because in that space between what happens and what you do about it lives the entire difference between a life lived by default and one crafted by intention. And that's where your real power begins. Strategy 23. Virtue as the sole good, the Stoic compass in a world of noise. Epictetus cut through life's distractions with a razor-sharp principle. Some things are up to us and some are not, but the only true good lies in how we choose. For the Stoics, virtue wasn't just admirable, it was the only thing that couldn't be taken from you. Not wealth, not reputation, not even health, your character. That's your sovereign territory. In an age where likes, promotions, and possessions often masquerade as measures of worth, this ancient idea isn't just philosophical, it's a lifeline. Think about how easily modern life conflates value with valuation. A bigger paycheck means you're successful. A viral post means you're heard. But the Stoics asked a deeper question: what if you lost all of it tomorrow? The answer reveals the flaw in tying your worth to externals. A ship doesn't become seaworthy because it's laden with gold. It stays afloat by the integrity of its hull. Likewise, your resilience doesn't come from what you have, but from who you are when the storm hits. Here's where Stoicism turns conventional wisdom upside down. Imagine two scenarios. 1. You land a lucrative deal by cutting corners, short-term gain, but at what cost to your self-respect? 2. You walk away from a dishonest opportunity. Immediate sacrifice, but with your integrity intact. Most people celebrate the first outcome and pity the second. The Stoics would argue the opposite. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, waste no more time arguing what a good person should be one. Virtue isn't a garnish on the plate of life, it's the meal itself. Let's make this practical. Recall a recent crossroads where you faced a choice between convenience and character. Maybe it was resisting office gossip, returning excess change at a store, or admitting a mistake when no one would have noticed. Those moments aren't just tests, they're training. Every time you prioritize honesty over advantage, courage over comfort, you're not just doing the right thing. You're reinforcing a mental framework where external rewards pale next to inner alignment. This isn't about rejecting success or comfort. It's about redefining where true security lies. A thief can steal your wallet, but not your wisdom. A layoff can strip your title, but not your temperance. As Epictetus reminded his students, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. When virtue becomes your compass, you stop chasing shadows and start walking unshaken no matter how the world shifts around you. So tonight, try this audit. What's one decision I made today that aligned with my values regardless of the cost? And if nothing comes to mind, tomorrow's a new day to choose differently, because in the Stoic playbook, the richest reward isn't what you accumulate. It's who you become in the process. Strategy 24, the alchemy of obstacles, how to transpire barriers into fuel. Marcus Aurelius left us 5 words that still ignite minds centuries later. The impediment becomes the way. At first glance, it sounds like blind optimism, but the Stoics meant something far more radical. They weren't suggesting you plaster a smile over hardship. They were teaching the art of mental alchemy, transforming leaden setbacks into golden opportunities through sheer perspective. History's most resilient figures embodied this principle. Nelson Mandela didn't merely endure 27 years in prison. He used isolation to hone his resolve, study his adversaries, and emerge not bitter but strategically compassionate. Thomas Edison reframed thousands of failed experiments as discovering ways that don't work. Even modern innovators like J.K. Rowling leveraged rejection letters as proof she had nothing left to lose, freeing her to write fearlessly. The common thread: each treated obstacles not as dead ends, but as detours directing them toward unexpected strengths. Here's the neuroscience behind this ancient hack. When you interpret a barrier as a challenge rather than a threat, your brain shifts from panic mode to problem solving. Stress hormones decrease, dopamine and noradrenaline rise, sharpening focus. The Stoics intuited this biological truth long before labs confirmed it, that how we frame adversity determines whether it crushes us or catalyzes growth. Your turn to practice this mental pivot. Pick one current obstacle, a stalled project, a strained relationship, even a financial squeeze, and ask one, how could this exact situation be forcing me to develop skills I've neglected? Patience, creativity, humility. 2. What doors might it open that I wouldn't have seen on an easier path? 3. If I knew this obstacle was secretly here to teach me something, what might the lesson be? This isn't about denying frustration, it's about mining hardship for its hidden curriculum. As Ryan Holiday, author of The Obstacle is the Way, puts it, the obstacle isn't the thing, it's the way. That delayed flight becomes time to read. That criticism exposes blind spots. Even pain becomes a compass pointing toward what truly matters. So next time you hit resistance, whisper Marcus' mantra like a spell. The impediment becomes the way. Not as wishful thinking, but as a reminder that every barrier holds a choice, to see it as a wall or a bridge, and which you choose determines whether it breaks you or builds you. Strategy 25. The urgency of now. Why mortality sharpens your focus. Seneca delivered a wake-up call that still echoes today. Life is long if you know how to use it. But here's the twist. He wasn't talking about cramming more tasks into frantic days. The Stoics saw time differently, not as something to race through, but as a finite resource to invest with ruthless intentionality. This isn't about hurry, it's about clarity. When you internalize that every minute is borrowed, you stop wasting it on what doesn't matter and start directing it toward what does. Consider how most of us treat time like an endless tap, scrolling, complaining, or delaying while the reservoir drains. Yet research shows people on their deathbeds rarely regret not working more. Their regrets center on missed connections, unlived dreams, and postponed joy. The Stoics weaponized this awareness with Memento Mori, not to paralyze but to prioritize. Imagine holding an hourglass where the sand represents your life's minutes. Would you let them trickle away on autopilot or pour them into what truly resonates? Here's how to channel this urgency without anxiety. 1. The mortality meditation once this week. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Close your eyes and visualize your last year of life. Ask, what would I stop tolerating? Who would I reach out to? What legacy would feel complete? No drama, just stark clarity. 2. The time audit. Track one typical day like a scientist. How many minutes vanish into social media rabbit holes, gossip, or indecision? Spotting the leaks is step 1 to plugging them. 3. Seneca's daily question at dusk. Ask, did I use today or just use it up? Not to judge, but to recalibrate. Modern psychology confirms this approach. Studies on temporal landmarks, like birthdays or New Year's, show they trigger behavioral shifts because they heighten awareness of time's passage. The Stoics simply made every day a landmark. This isn't about morbid fixation, it's about liberation. When you stop pretending time is infinite, you start spending it like currency, not confetti. As Seneca wrote, it's not that we have too little time, but that we waste so much of it. So try this now. Pause and feel the weight of the present moment. Not as a burden, but as a gift you're actively unwrapping, because urgency, when rooted in meaning, doesn't rush you, it focuses you. Your next hour is coming. What will you make of it? Strategy 26. The reserve clause. Planning without stranglehold. Epictetus offered his students a simple phrase that diffused frustration before it could take root. I will sail across the sea if nothing prevents me. At first glance, it sounds like hedging, but buried in that "if" lies a profound psychological shift. The The Stoics called this the reserve clause, a conscious reminder that while intention steers the ship, fate controls the winds. Modern goal-setting culture often pushes the opposite mentality. Burn the boats, no plan B. But here's the irony: when we white-knuckle our expectations, setbacks don't just disappoint, they unravel our sense of agency. The reserve clause isn't about passivity, it's about detachment. By adding fate permitting to our plans, whether silently or aloud, we acknowledge reality's unpredictability without surrendering our effort. Picture this: you've trained for months for a marathon, only to sprain your ankle the week before. Without the reserve clause, the injury feels like betrayal, a personal failure. With it, the effort wasn't wasted. It sculpted discipline you'll use elsewhere. As Epictetus noted, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well. Let's ground this in daily life. Next time you set a goal, whether it's finishing a project by Friday or hosting a flawless dinner, whisper the caveat: if nothing prevents me. Not as doubt, but as liberation. This tiny mental edit does three things. 1. Reduces friction with reality when interruptions arise. They're expected guests, not intruders. 2. Preserves joy in the process. The value lies in the doing, not just the done. 3. Fuels adaptability. Detached from rigid outcomes, you spot alternatives faster. Try this today. Script one intention with the reserve clause baked in. I'll present my proposal confidently tomorrow if health and tech allow. Feel the difference. That's not weakness, it's wisdom, because the tightest grip often holds the least. Strategy 27. Self-denial experiments the strength found in temporary lack. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who lived like a monk despite his high status, had a radical teaching. To test the quality of their principles, people should endure hardship voluntarily. He wasn't promoting suffering for its own sake, but recognizing a profound truth. Comfort dulls our edges, while intentional lack sharpens them. It's like a mental vaccine, tiny exposures to hardship that inoculate you against life's inevitable disruptions. Think about how fragile modern life has become. A dead phone battery sparks panic. A delayed Amazon delivery feels like an emergency. The Stoics diagnosed this centuries ago. When we never practice going without, even minor inconveniences feel catastrophic. But there's a remedy: self-denial experiments. Short, controlled stretches where you willingly step away from comforts to prove to yourself that you're stronger than your dependencies. Here's how to put this into practice without upending your life. 1. The digital sunset. Pick one evening this week to shut off all screens after dinner. No scrolling, no streaming, just books, conversation, or silence. Notice the twitchy urge to reach for your phone, and then the quiet clarity that follows when you resist. 2. Meal simplicity for a day. Eat only plain, nourishing foods: oats, vegetables, water. No snacks, no indulgence. Not to punish yourself, but to remember, joy doesn't require constant stimulation. Musonius taught that luxury makes us weaker in facing life's challenges. 3. The cold shower challenge for 3 mornings. End your shower with 30 seconds of cold water. It's not about toughness, it's about training your mind to stay calm when the body screams no. The magic happens in the debrief. After each experiment, ask, what did I miss most, and what does that reveal about my attachments? What unexpected strengths or insights emerged? How can I carry this clarity into everyday life? Modern research echoes this ancient wisdom. Studies on stress inoculation show that voluntary exposure to discomfort, like cold therapy or fasting, boosts resilience to uncontrollable stressors. But the Stoics didn't need data. They knew that by routinely saying no to small desires, you build the muscle to say yes to what truly matters when it counts. So try this. Start with one discomfort this week, even something as simple as leaving your phone in another room while you work. The goal isn't austerity. It's agency, because every time you prove you can live without something, you reclaim the freedom to choose whether and how to let it back in, and that's where real power begins. Strategy 28. Preemptive rejection, disarming fear before it takes hold. Seneca observed something striking about human anxiety. Poverty is fearing poverty. In other words, the dread of loss often torments us more than the loss itself. The Stoics didn't just sidestep this truth, they weaponized it. By deliberately rehearsing worst-case scenarios, they stripped fear of its power, transforming rejection from a specter into a teacher. Here's why this works. Your brain treats imagination and reality as near-identical experiences. When you vividly picture failing an interview or bombing an audition before it happens, you're not wallowing, you're inoculating yourself against the shock of disappointment. Psychologists call this stress exposure therapy. Ancient philosophers called it wisdom. Take job interviews, for instance. Most people obsess over perfect answers, clinging to the fantasy of flawless execution. The Stoic approach: spend 10 minutes visualizing not getting the role, hearing the polite rejection email, feeling the initial sting, then watching yourself regroup and apply elsewhere. When you've already walked through the disappointment mentally, the real thing loses its fangs. You're no longer auditioning for validation, you're collecting data. This wasn't the right fit. Next. But this isn't about pessimism, it's about preparedness. Research shows that people who practice defensive pessimism, anticipating obstacles while planning solutions, often outperform their blindly optimistic peers. Like a fire drill, the rehearsal doesn't summon disaster, it ensures calm when challenges arrive. Try this today. Pick one upcoming situation where fear of rejection lingers. A pitch, a first date, a creative submission. Write down the worst realistic outcome, not catastrophes, but plausible setbacks. Then script your response. 1. How would I process the emotion? E.g., I'll take a walk, then reflect on lessons learned. 2. What's my very next action? E.g., send 3 more submissions by Friday. By mapping the path past rejection, you prove to yourself it wouldn't be the end, just a bend in the road. As Seneca wrote, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Preemptive rejection isn't dwelling on failure, it's reclaiming the narrative before life writes it for you. And here's the unexpected bonus: when you stop fearing no, you start hearing yes with deeper gratitude, not as relief, but as confirmation that you were brave enough to risk the answer you dreaded. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's knowing you've already survived it in your mind. Strategy 29. The Stoic archer mastering the art of detached effort. Cicero, the Roman statesman steeped in Stoic thought, painted a vivid picture of wisdom in action. An archer should do his best to hit the target, yet remain calm whether he succeeds or misses. At first glance, this sounds like indifference, but the Stoics meant something far more profound. The archer controls the draw of the bow, the aim, the release, everything up to the moment the arrow leaves his hand. After that, wind, luck, or an unexpected obstacle might determine where it lands. The lesson isn't don't care, it's care deeply about what's yours to command and release the rest. Now contrast that with how we operate today. In a world obsessed with KPIs, likes, and quarterly results, we've conflated effort with entitlement to success. Ever poured your soul into a project that fell flat, only to spiral into was it all wasted? Or trained relentlessly for a competition, only to freeze on game day and label yourself a failure? The Stoic archer whispers a liberating truth: your worth isn't measured by the target's verdict, but by the integrity of your shot. History's great practitioners lived this. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb on his first try. He refined 10,000 good misses into one breakthrough. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter manuscript faced a dozen rejections before finding a home. What set them apart wasn't immunity to disappointment, but their ability to separate the quality of their effort from the randomness of outcomes. Here's how to apply this today. 1. Audit your targets. Pick one current goal, a fitness milestone, a creative project, and ask, have I controlled all I can? List the variables outside your influence: judges' tastes, market trends, pure chance. 2. Celebrate the shot. Reflect on a recent good miss, a sincere attempt that didn't pan out. Instead of fixating on the result, honor the discipline it required. Write down what it taught you. 3. The post-release pause after your next big effort, a presentation, an audition. Consciously let go for 24 hours. No refreshing analytics, no agonizing over feedback. Embody the archer walking away after a clean release. Modern psychology backs this ancient insight. Studies on process praise, commending effort over outcomes, show it boosts long-term resilience in everyone from athletes to students. But the Stoics took it further. True freedom comes when you stop demanding that life reward your effort on demand. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the cucumber is bitter, then throw it away. There are brambles in the path, then go around. That's all you need to know. So knock your arrow, take aim, and loose it with all the skill you possess. Then, and this is the hardest part, let the target worry about itself, because mastery isn't just in the hitting. It's in the graceful acceptance of every flight path, straight or wayward, as part of the craft. Strategy 30. Cosmic perspective. Finding calm in the vastness of existence. There's a moment in Marcus Aurelius' Meditations where he steadies his mind with a humbling thought. Think of the entire universe and how small your share of it is. This wasn't just poetic musing, it was a tactical shift in perception. The Stoics called it the cosmic perspective, and it remains one of the most powerful ways to dissolve stress, conflict, and ego by zooming out to scales where petty grievances simply can't survive. Think about the last time you felt consumed by a problem, a heated argument, a career setback, or even the relentless churn of the news cycle. Now imagine viewing that same situation from orbit, watching Earth as a silent blue marble adrift in the infinite black. From that vantage point, political divisions, personal slights, and daily frustrations lose their gravitational pull. The cosmic perspective doesn't erase challenges, it just reminds you how small they are in the grand tapestry of existence. Astronauts who have experienced this firsthand call it the overview effect, a profound shift in awareness where borders vanish, and what once seemed urgent fades into insignificance. The Stoics achieved the same mental shift without leaving the ground. When Marcus wrote, "Think of the whole," he was training himself to see his struggles as fleeting specks in time, no more permanent than a wave breaking on the shore. Here's how to apply this today. 1. The conflict lens. Next time you're embroiled in a disagreement, whether online or with a loved one, pause and ask, will this matter in a century? Not to dismiss the issue, but to approach it with clarity instead of heat. 2. The planetary pause when overwhelmed. Picture Earth from space, not as a map of nations, but as a single, fragile ecosystem where everyone you've ever known resides. Your stress suddenly has less room to expand. 3. The legacy test for big decisions. Ask, how does this align with the kind of ancestor I want to be? Cosmic thinking isn't about detachment, it's about responsibility on the grandest scale. This practice isn't escapism, it's context. By regularly reminding yourself of the universe's vastness, you're not shrinking your life, you're freeing it from the illusion that every stumble is a catastrophe. As Marcus scribbled in his journal, keep before your eyes the swiftness of the rushing universe and the brevity of every life within it. When you internalize that truth, even the stormiest emotions feel like passing weather systems. Try this tonight. Stand outside under the stars or gaze at a photo of deep space. Let the sheer scale of it all recalibrate your worries, because the cosmic perspective doesn't just put problems in their place, it reveals how extraordinary it is to be here at all, wrestling with them. And that's a gift no challenge can diminish. Strategy 31. Character over reputation, the unseen foundation of true strength. Epictetus cut through the noise of human vanity with a razor's precision. If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in external matters. At its core, this isn't about dismissing reputation entirely, it's about recognizing a dangerous inversion. When we prioritize seeming good over being good, we trade integrity for applause, and that's a bargain no Stoic would ever make. Consider the modern obsession with personal branding, curated social media feeds, performative acts of kindness for the camera, the relentless polishing of how we're perceived. None of this is inherently wrong, but the Stoics would spot the trap. When your self-worth becomes tied to likes and external validation, you've handed the keys to your happiness to strangers. Reputation, after all, is what others think of you. Character is what you know about yourself when no one's watching. Take a scroll through Instagram and you'll find two versions of people, the highlight reel they present and the private struggles they conceal. The Stoics weren't against sharing achievements, but they warned against conflating the mask with the face. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire yet wrote in his private journal, "It's silly to refuse praise from others out of pride, but foolish to accept it as truth." He understood that applause is fickle, but the quiet certainty of living by your principles, that's unshakable. Here's how to put this into practice. 1. The social media audit for 1 week. Pause before posting. Ask, is this sharing something meaningful or am I seeking validation? Notice the difference between "this inspired me" and "will this impress them?" 2. The private virtue journal. Each night, jot down one act of integrity no one witnessed, resisting gossip, choosing honesty when a lie would have been easier, showing patience you didn't feel. These invisible choices are the bedrock of character. 3. The discomfort test. Do something genuinely kind, then don't post about it. Sit with the humility of knowing goodness needs no witness. Modern psychology reveals why this matters. Studies on self-concept clarity show that people whose worth isn't tied to external approval report higher resilience and life satisfaction. The Stoics knew this instinctively. Reputation, they argued, is like smoke. It shifts with the wind. Character is the fire that produces it. Tend to the flame and the smoke takes care of itself. So tonight, ask yourself Epictetus' piercing question. If everyone suddenly saw my private actions, would I feel pride or shame? Not to torment yourself, but to realign. Because the world will always have opinions, but your character, that's the one thing no algorithm can measure, no critic can tarnish, and no time can erase. And that's where true freedom lies. Strategy 32. Voluntary poverty, the freedom of choosing less. Imagine waking up one morning and deciding, just for today, to spend nothing. No coffee runs, no impulse purchases, not even a swipe of your card for convenience. At first, it might feel like deprivation, but here's the surprising truth Seneca discovered. Temporary austerity isn't about lacking. It's about remembering how much you already have. The Stoic philosopher regularly practiced what he called poverty weeks, stretches where he'd live on minimal food, wear plain clothing, and sleep on a hard bed. His goal wasn't self-punishment, but immunization against the creeping belief that comfort equals happiness. As he wrote in Letters from a Stoic, set aside a certain number of days to eat only the plainest food, wear the coarsest clothes, and ask yourself, is this what I used to fear? Modern life bombards us with messages that more is better. Upgrade, indulge, treat yourself. Yet study after study shows that once basic needs are met, extra wealth barely moves the happiness needle. The Stoics spotted this paradox centuries ago. Luxury doesn't satisfy, it numbs. But when you voluntarily step into simplicity, even briefly, you reset your relationship with enough. Here's how to practice this today without turning into an ascetic. 1. The no-spend day. Pick one day this week where you bypass all non-essential spending. Pack lunch instead of buying it. Walk rather than Uber. Notice how creativity flourishes when convenience isn't an option. 2. The digital minimalist. Evening after sunset. Ditch screens and devices. Rediscover the quiet joy of a book, a conversation, or simply sitting with your thoughts. Seneca's poverty weeks included mental austerity. 2. No distractions to cloak inner restlessness. 3. The gratitude inventory post-experiment. List 3 non-material joys you rediscovered. Maybe the taste of water when you're truly thirsty, the satisfaction of a repaired item, or the luxury of unbroken focus. This isn't about romanticizing hardship. It's about deprivatizing happiness from things that can be taken away. As psychologist William James noted, the best way to appreciate something is to imagine its loss. Voluntary poverty trains you to find abundance in what's always available: clear thought, fresh air, the ability to choose your response. So try it. Let your next no to spending be a yes to something far richer, the unshakable knowing that you're already free. Because the greatest wealth isn't what fills your wallet. It's realizing how little you actually need to fill your soul. Strategy 33. Life as your Stoic exam, transforming challenges into character tests. Marcus Aurelius sketched a simple yet profound idea in his private notes. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. But here's the twist: he didn't just say it, he lived it. Every battle, betrayal, or bureaucratic headache he faced as emperor wasn't just a problem to solve. It was an exam designed to reveal and refine his virtues. That's the core of this strategy. When you stop seeing obstacles as nuisances and start treating them as deliberate tests, you unlock a mental shift where every challenge becomes a chance to level up. Think about the last time you hit a snag, a missed promotion, a stressful family argument, or even a flat tire on a rainy day. The default reaction: frustration, maybe even resentment. But the Stoic reframe: that moment was never just bad luck. It was a pop quiz from the universe asking, can you stay calm under pressure? Will you choose kindness over pettiness? How creatively can you pivot? Suddenly, the stakes aren't just about the outcome, they're about who you become in the process. Here's how to apply this today. 1. The postmortem of progress. Pick one recent setback, a rejection, a mistake at work, and reinterpret it as a test you've already taken. Ask, what virtue was this evaluating? Patience, humility, resilience. Grade yourself honestly, not to self-criticize, but to spot where to study harder next time. 2. The pre-game briefing before your next high-stakes moment, a tough conversation, a deadline crunch. Pause and whisper, this is a Stoic exam on. Fill in the blank with the skill you're being tested on, perhaps composure, integrity, or adaptability. That tiny label changes everything. 3. The cosmic professor. Imagine life itself as your Stoic teacher, crafting custom challenges to strengthen your weak spots. The colleague who annoys you, a patience drill. The project that keeps stalling, a perseverance test. When you see the pattern, even irritants start to feel like part of the curriculum. Modern psychology backs this ancient hack. Studies on stress reappraisal show that viewing pressure as a performance enhancer, not a threat, boosts confidence and outcomes. Athletes who reframe pre-game jitters as excitement fuel consistently outperform those who dread them. The Stoics just took it further. Every hardship, big or small, is an opportunity to prove your philosophy in action. So tomorrow, when chaos inevitably knocks, don't just endure it, engage with it. Ask, what's being tested here? Then answer with your choices, because the real prize isn't passing or failing, it's realizing you're always in training. And the best part, life never runs out of exams. Strategy 34. Contemplating the sage, borrowing wisdom from the wisest version of you. Picture this. You're in a team meeting when a colleague takes credit for your idea. Heat rises to your cheeks, your fingers tighten around your pen, every instinct screams to call them out publicly. But then a quieter voice interrupts. What would the wisest person I know do here? That pause, that moment of mental role-playing, is the essence of Stoic sage contemplation, a practice Epictetus framed as "what would Socrates do?" The Stoics weren't suggesting you invent a flawless superhero. Instead, they urged you to conjure a composite sage, an idealized version of yourself who embodies reason, courage, and fairness. This mental avatar becomes your North Star in foggy moments, cutting through emotional noise with clarity. Think of it like chess. Before moving a piece, masters visualize the board 3 steps ahead. Sage contemplation lets you do the same with character. Let's make this practical. Facing a workplace drama, say, a passive-aggressive email or a missed deadline that wasn't your fault, try this 3-step drill. 1. Pause and personify. Close your eyes and imagine your sage walking into the room. How do they stand? What's their tone? Hint, it's probably calm, curious, and unrattled. 2. Channel their response. Would they escalate the conflict or disarm it with a question like, "Help me understand what happened here"? Would they seek justice or prioritize team harmony? 3. Bridge the gap. Ask, what's one small action I can take today to align with that wisdom? Maybe it's drafting a neutral reply instead of firing off a sarcastic one, or scheduling a private chat to resolve tensions. Modern psychology validates this approach. Studies on self-distancing, viewing problems as if advising a friend, show it reduces emotional reactivity and boosts wise decision-making. The Stoics simply took it further. By embodying an idealized version of yourself, you're not pretending. You're practicing who you could become. For a real-world test, pick one minor annoyance today, a snide comment, an unfair chore distribution, and mentally audition 2 responses, your gut reaction and your sage-calibrated reply. Notice how the latter feels less like suppression and more like elevation. As Epictetus reminded his students, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Every time you ask, what would my wisest self choose, you're not just solving a problem, you're sculpting the person who'll handle the next one even better. And that's how ordinary moments become extraordinary training grounds. Strategy 35, the shortness of life, why every moment demands your full attention. Seneca's piercing words in on the shortness of life cut through centuries of distraction. It is not that we have so little time, but that we lose so much of it. At first glance, that might sound like a scolding, but the Stoics meant it as a wake-up call, not to hustle harder, but to choose with ruthless clarity. Because here's the uncomfortable truth, most of us live as if we're immortal, squandering mornings to snooze buttons, evenings to mindless scrolling, and years to half-hearted commitments. Let's confront this head-on. Imagine your life as a blank calendar stretching 80 years, roughly 4,000 weeks. Chances are, a significant chunk is already crossed off. The Stoics didn't dwell on this to depress you, but to activate you. Temporal awareness isn't about counting seconds, it's about making seconds count. Every later whispered to a dream, every hour lost to trivial dramas, is a withdrawal from an account you can't refill. Here's how to turn this awareness into action. 1. The time autopsy. Grab a notebook and track one typical week in 30-minute blocks. No judgment, just facts. You'll likely spot leaks, commutes lost to podcast rants, chores stretched by procrastination, or quick checks that devour an evening. Seneca's warning rings loud. Life is long if you know how to use it. 2. The one-cut experiment. Eliminate one recurring time sink that adds 0 value. Maybe it's that weekly show you watch out of habit, not joy, or the social media rabbit hole you fall into post-lunch. Freeing even 3 hours weekly creates space for what truly resonates. 3. The mortality mirror. Each morning, ask, If today were my last, would I spend it this way? Not to incite panic, but to sharpen focus. You won't suddenly quit your job, but you might finally call that friend, draft that proposal, or savor your coffee instead of gulping it. Modern psychology validates this approach. Studies show people who practice finite thinking, acknowledging life's limits, make bolder choices, deepen relationships, and report higher fulfillment. But the Stoics didn't need data. They knew that confronting mortality isn't morbid, it's liberating. When you stop pretending time is infinite, you start spending it like currency, not confetti. So try this tonight. Sketch your ideal week in broad strokes, what you'd prioritize if distractions vanished. Then circle one change to implement tomorrow. Not a radical overhaul, just a nudge toward intention, because Seneca wasn't wrong. Life is long enough if you stop letting it slip through your fingers like sand. Strategy 36. Indifference to fortune, the freedom of defining enough. There's a striking moment in Marcus Aurelius' Meditations where he describes fame as a bubble that bursts the moment it's touched. It wasn't cynicism, it was a reminder that external rewards, no matter how glittering, are fleeting. The Stoics took this further with a radical proposition. True security isn't found in chasing fortune, but in becoming indifferent to its whims. This isn't about rejecting success, it's about redefining it on your own terms. Modern research echoes this ancient wisdom. Studies on lottery winners reveal a surprising pattern. Within a year, most return to their baseline happiness levels or worse. The initial euphoria fades, leaving them nostalgic for the simple joys they took for granted before the windfall. The lesson: external gains amplify who you already are. If you're restless without wealth, you'll likely be restless with it. If you're content with little, more will feel like decoration, not oxygen. Here's the practical shift: define your personal enough. Not as a static number, but as a threshold where additional wealth, status, or possessions stop adding meaning. Try this exercise. 1. Financial. If I could cover my needs, save for emergencies, and occasionally treat loved ones, any extra would fund experiences or generosity, not lifestyle inflation. 2. Recognition. I'd rather have 100 true fans who resonate with my work than 100 indifferent followers. 3. Material. My ideal home isn't the biggest, but the one that feels like a sanctuary. The Stoics weren't anti-ambition, they were anti-attachment, as Seneca wrote to his wealthy friend Lucilius. It's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor. When you internalize that fortune's gifts and losses are weather patterns passing over a mountain, you stop mistaking them for the terrain itself. So ask yourself today, where have I been chasing an illusion of security? Not to discourage growth, but to anchor it in something sturdier than luck. Because the ultimate luxury isn't more, it's the unshakable knowing that you've already crossed your own finish line. Strategy 37. The discipline of action when your deeds become your creed. Epictetus didn't just teach philosophy, he demanded its sweat and calluses. Don't explain your principles, live them, he insisted. That's the heart of this strategy, the discipline of action. It's not enough to admire wisdom. Stoicism thrives when your choices echo it. Every decision, from career moves to how you speak to a barrister, becomes a brushstroke in the portrait of your character. Here's where most of us stumble. We believe in patience but snap in traffic. We value honesty but soften truths to avoid discomfort. The gap between what we claim and what we do isn't hypocrisy, it's untapped potential. The Stoics saw this gap as a gym for integrity, where small, consistent actions forge unshakable alignment. Your challenge today: 1. The virtue audit. Look back at yesterday's choices. Did that gossipy conversation align with kindness? Did procrastination honor your commitment to discipline? No guilt, just clarity. Epictetus urged, first say what kind of person you want to be, then act accordingly. 2. The micro-promise: pick one value you've neglected recently, say courage or generosity. Before sunset, perform a single act that embodies it. Even something as simple as voicing an unpopular opinion or buying coffee for the person behind you. 3. The ripple rule: ask, if everyone acted as I did today, what would the world look like? This isn't about grand gestures. It's about making your daily rhythm hum with intention. Modern psychology confirms this ancient practice. Studies on identity-based habits show that when actions reflect self-concept, I'm someone who keeps promises, change sticks. But the Stoics took it further. Alignment isn't just for self-improvement, it's how you earn trust, starting with your own. So let your next move be a quiet rebellion against empty ideals. Because principles gather dust on shelves, lived out loud, they become the compass that never fails. Strategy 38. The Stoic opposition: forging strength through resistance. Marcus Aurelius left us a metaphor that crackles with insight. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way, but he didn't stop there. He compared hardship to a blacksmith's fire, explaining how gold is tested and purified by flame. The Stoics saw resistance not as something to avoid, but as the very material that shapes resilience. Think of it like mental weightlifting. The heavier the load, the stronger the mind becomes. Consider the last time life handed you a true test: a failure that bruised your ego, a rejection that stung, or a period of relentless pressure. In the moment, it likely felt like an enemy. But look back now. What skills did that struggle force you to develop? Maybe patience, adaptability, or grit you didn't know you possessed. The Stoics would argue that obstacle wasn't a detour, it was the path itself, designed to reveal and refine your hidden capacities. Here's how to actively apply this today. 1. The retrospective drill: pick one past hardship, a job loss, a breakup, even a financial squeeze, and list 3 ways it strengthened you. Did it sharpen your problem solving, deepen your empathy, reveal your capacity to endure? 2. The live reframe for a current struggle, a grueling project, a difficult conversation. Pause and ask, if this were intentionally designed to train me, what muscle would it be building? Maybe it's teaching you to communicate under stress or to prioritize ruthlessly. 3. The resistance ritual: just as athletes seek heavier weights, integrate small voluntary challenges: waking earlier, fasting for a meal, or tackling a task you've avoided. Prove to yourself that discomfort is growth in disguise. Modern psychology backs this ancient insight. Studies on stress inoculation show that controlled exposure to adversity, like vaccines introducing weakened viruses, builds psychological immunity. But the Stoics took it further. True mastery comes when you stop seeing opposition as misfortune and start recognizing it as the universe's most demanding and effective coach. So next time you feel the heat of resistance, remember Marcus' golden truth. Fire doesn't destroy the metal, it reveals its true strength, and the obstacles you face today aren't blocking your path. They're sculpting the person who'll walk it with unshakable confidence tomorrow. Strategy 39. The present moment, where Stoic calm meets the now. Epictetus sliced through human distraction with 4 razor-sharp words: stick with the present. No grand theory, no complex philosophy, just an urgent reminder that now is the only reality we ever truly inhabit. Yet here's the paradox: our minds are time travelers, constantly darting between regrets about yesterday and anxieties about tomorrow, while the present slips through our fingers like smoke. The Stoics weren't just preaching mindfulness, they were offering a tactical toolkit to reclaim your attention from the tyranny of what if and if only. Consider how often you've eaten a meal without tasting it, or listened to a loved one while mentally drafting your reply. Modern life accelerates this fragmentation. Notifications pull us into digital rabbit holes, to-do lists hijack quiet moments, and even leisure becomes a race to document rather than experience. The cost, a life half-lived, scattered across moments you weren't fully there for. Here's how to anchor yourself Stoic style using the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. 1. 5 sights. Pause and name 5 things you see: a coffee cup, steam, sunlight on the floor. No poetry, just facts. This forces your brain out of abstraction. 2. 4 textures. Touch 4 surfaces: your shirt's fabric, the coolness of your phone. Sensations tether you to the physical world. 3 sounds. Identify 3 ambient noises: birds outside, a distant laugh. Listening crowds out, mental chatter. 4 2 scents. Notice 2 smells: fresh air, your own shampoo. Smell is the most primal sense, instantly grounding. 5 1 flavor. Taste 1 thing: your lip balm, lingering coffee. Flavor exists only in the present. This isn't just stress relief, it's neurochemical warfare against distraction. Studies show sensory grounding reduces cortisol by up to 20% in minutes, while fMRI scans reveal it quiets the default mode network, the brain's wandering mind circuit. The Stoics intuited this when Epictetus urged, stick with the present. He wasn't dismissing planning or reflection. He was warning against letting them colonize the only moment where action and peace is possible. For a deeper drill, try thought tagging today. Each time you catch your mind drifting to past grudges or future worries, mentally label it time travel and gently return to one physical sensation: your breath, your feet on the ground. No judgment, just redirection. Like training a puppy, consistency, not perfection, builds the habit. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. Give yourself a gift: the present moment. Not as passive surrender, but as fierce focus. Because when you stop treating now as a waiting room for the next big thing, you uncover something radical. The ordinary is already extraordinary if you're fully there to see it. Strategy 40. Common humanity transforming judgment into connection. Marcus Aurelius once scribbled a line in his journal that cuts to the core of human friction. When someone offends you, remember we're all made for cooperation, like hands or eyelids. At first glance, it sounds idealistic, but the Stoics meant something far more practical. Every time you're tempted to judge someone's rudeness, selfishness, or incompetence, there's an alternative. See their flaws as mirrors of your own unhealed struggles. This isn't about excusing harm. It's about recognizing that brokenness speaks a universal language. Think about the last time someone cut you off in traffic or snapped at you at work. Your instinct might have labeled them jerk or inconsiderate, but what if instead you pause to ask, when have I acted like this? Maybe you've never tailgated, but perhaps you've been short-tempered when stressed. Maybe you've interrupted when passionate. The Stoic shift here is subtle but seismic. Their failing becomes a reminder of your shared humanity. Modern psychology confirms this ancient insight. Studies on fundamental attribution error show we judge others by their actions. They're lazy, but ourselves by our circumstances. I'm exhausted. The Stoics hacked this bias by flipping the script, viewing others' stumbles through the lens of context, not character. That co-worker who missed a deadline. Maybe they're drowning in unseen battles. The stranger who brushed past you could be racing to a hospital bed. As Epictetus advised, when someone behaves badly, ask yourself, are they acting from ignorance or compulsion? Either way, pity them, don't add anger to their burden. Here's your challenge today. 1. The silent compassion drill. Next time someone irritates you, mentally whisper, just like me, they've known pain. Just like me, they want peace. No need to confront them. This is inner training. 2. The perspective flip. Recall a recent conflict and journal 3 possible pressures the other person might have faced. Not to absolve harm, but to expand understanding. 3. The mirror test. At day's end, note 1 instance where you fell short of your ideals. Let it soften your critique of others tomorrow. This practice isn't about becoming a doormat. It's about building bridges where others see walls, because when you stop treating people as problems and start seeing them as fellow travelers, flawed, fragile, and fighting their own battles, something extraordinary happens. Your anger loses its fuel, your patience deepens, and cooperation becomes less a lofty ideal and more a daily habit. As Marcus wrote, "What injures the hive injures the bee." Every judgment you release isn't just grace for them, it's peace for you. And in a world desperate for connection, that's not just philosophy, it's survival. Strategy 41. The Stoic Fork, sorting life's challenges with surgical precision. Epictetus handed his students a mental tool so practical it could fit on a napkin. Some things are up to us, some are not. But here's where most of us stumble. We treat this division as philosophy when it's really triage for the mind. Picture a fork in the road where every challenge, every worry gets sorted into one of two buckets: mine to solve or not mine to carry. The brilliance: this isn't about giving up, it's about focusing your energy where it actually moves the needle. Let's make this tangible. Grab a sheet of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left, list your top 3 stressors right now, maybe a looming deadline, a friend's drama, or the weather ruining your weekend plans. Now apply the Stoic fork: controllables, your preparation for the deadline, your boundaries with the friend, your attitude about the rain. Uncontrollables: the boss's mood, their personal choices, the storm system moving in. Like a master chef separating yolks from whites, this exercise reveals a shocking truth. We often exhaust ourselves stirring pots we don't even own. The Stoics didn't just suggest ignoring the uncontrollables, they practiced active release. Imagine handing a heavy backpack to a stranger and walking away lighter. That's the mental shift you're after. Modern psychology validates this ancient hack. Studies on the locus of control show that people who focus on their sphere of influence report lower stress and higher problem-solving ability. But Epictetus framed it more bluntly: we suffer not from events but from our judgments about them. When you stop mistaking anxiety for responsibility, you reclaim a superpower: the ability to invest your finite energy where it grows instead of wasting it on storms you can't calm. Here's your challenge today: pick one persistent worry and run it through the Stoic fork. If it's controllable, act. If it's not, whisper, "Not my burden," and redirect your attention. At first, it might feel unnatural, like unclenching a muscle you didn't know was tense. But with practice, you'll start spotting the difference between productive concern and mental hoarding. Because the ultimate freedom isn't controlling everything. It's knowing deep in your bones which levers are yours to pull and letting the rest fall away like leaves in the wind. And that's when you discover something extraordinary. The less you try to hold onto, the more you actually accomplish. Strategy 42. The long view: how time travel sharpens today's choices. Seneca once offered a mental exercise so simple yet transformative that it cuts through procrastination like a scalpel. Look back upon your life from the vantage point of death. At first, this might sound morbid, but the Stoics saw it as liberation. When you project yourself forward, suddenly the dramas of today shrink to their true size. That urgent email, a speck in your rear view, the awkward conversation you're avoiding, a forgotten ripple. What remains are the choices that actually shaped your story. Here's how to practice this today without a time machine. 1. The deathbed audit: close your eyes and imagine yourself at 80, reflecting on your current worries. Ask, will this matter have changed the trajectory of my life, or will it be a footnote I barely recall? The answers reveal what deserves your energy and what's just noise. 2. The letter from future: you grab paper and pen. Write a note from your 80-year-old self to present day you. What would they urge you to stop wasting time on? What would they beg you to start? The gap between their wisdom and your current stress is the roadmap to clarity. 3. The legacy lens for big decisions. Ask, If I keep choosing this path for 5 more years, where will it lead? Not in terms of wealth or status, but character. Will you be prouder, kinder, more aligned, or exhausted by pursuits that never truly fed your soul? Modern psychology confirms this works. Studies on temporal distancing show that viewing problems from a future perspective reduces emotional reactivity and boosts wise decision-making. But the Stoics didn't need labs to prove it. They knew time's expanse was the ultimate truth serum. Try this tonight. Revisit one nagging concern through the long lens. Feel how urgency melts into perspective. That's not detachment, it's clarity. Because when you stop sweating what won't echo, you start investing in what will. And that's how ordinary days become an extraordinary life. Strategy 43. The beginner's mind, wisdom in not knowing. Epictetus, the former slave who became one of history's greatest teachers, offered a counterintuitive key to growth. It is impossible to learn what you think you already know. At first, that might sound obvious, but the Stoics saw deeper. Real wisdom isn't just about acquiring knowledge, it's about shedding the illusion of certainty that keeps us stagnant. Imagine holding a cup under a waterfall. If it's already full, nothing new can enter. The same applies to your mind. We live in an era where expertise is prized, but here's the paradox. The more proficient we become, the harder it is to stay open. That colleague who insists this is how we've always done it, the artist stuck recycling old ideas, even the parent repeating patterns they swore they'd break. All are trapped by the same blind spot, mistaking familiarity for mastery. The Stoics called this Ammaphati, ignorance of one's own ignorance, and prescribed a radical antidote, the beginner's mind. Here's how to practice it today. 1. The assumption audit. Pick a routine task, something you do daily without thought, like your morning commute or work process. Now ask, what if I'm wrong about the best way to do this? Not to doubt yourself, but to rediscover curiosity. 2. The child's gaze. Approach a familiar problem as if seeing it for the first time. How would someone with no preconceptions tackle it? Often, the most elegant solutions come from those unburdened by how it's supposed to be. 3. Epictetus notebook. Jot down one belief you've held tightly about yourself, your field, or a relationship, and write 3 ways it might be incomplete. Not to discard it, but to create space for nuance. Modern science backs this ancient insight. Studies on cognitive flexibility show that experts who actively seek disconfirming evidence outperform those who rely on past successes. The best innovators, they're not the ones with all the answers, they're the ones who keep asking better questions. So today, let your mantra be, I don't know yet. Not as defeat, but as an invitation, because the mind that embraces its own limits isn't weak, it's endlessly expandable. And in a world that rewards adaptability over rigid certainty, that's the sharpest edge of all. Strategy 44. The Stoic pause. Mastering the gap between spark and fire. Marcus Aurelius sketched a truth in his journal that's almost meditative in its simplicity. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. Those words aren't just poetry, they're a tactical blueprint. The Stoics understood what modern neuroscience now confirms. Every reaction begins as an impulse, but it's in the pause that wisdom takes root. Think of it like a conductor's baton hovering mid-air. The brief silence before the music swells is where the artistry lives. Consider how often we hijack our own potential by rushing that gap. A colleague interrupts you in a meeting and instantly your pulse jumps, your jaw tightens, words fly out before the brain's reasoning center can weigh in. Later, you replay the moment, wishing you'd said something sharper, kinder, or simply less. That's the cost of skipping the pause, but here's the good news: hesitation isn't weakness. It's the training ground for mastery. How to cultivate this today. 1. The 3-beat rule in conversations. Mentally count 1, 2, 3 before responding. Not as a performance, but as a circuit breaker for emotional reflexes. You'll spot the difference between reacting to the person and responding to the idea. 2. Trigger mapping. Notice which topics or tones make your pause collapse. Maybe criticism, being talked over, or certain loaded phrases. Awareness alone stretches the gap. 3. The body scan. When tension flares, drop your attention to physical cues first. A clenched fist, shallow breath. Name them: heat in my chest, racing thoughts. This act of labeling shifts control from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. The Stoics didn't just preach this, they practiced it. Seneca described his nightly reviews where he'd dissect interactions. When did I speak too harshly? Where did I let pride override listening? That reflection wasn't self-punishment, it was sharpening the blade of restraint for next time. Modern life, with its relentless pace, treats pauses like inefficiencies. But here's the irony: the busier the world gets, the more valuable that space becomes. Like a photographer adjusting focus, the pause lets you shift from blurry emotion to crisp intention. So tomorrow, when the urge to react surges, remember Marcus' gap and meet it not as a void, but as the birthplace of your best choices. Because the difference between a knee-jerk retort and a reply that lands with weight isn't intelligence or wit. It's the courage to let silence do the heavy lifting. Strategy 45. The circle of influence. Mastering what's yours to command. Picture a stone dropped into a still pond. The ripples spread outward, growing fainter until they vanish into the water's edge. The Stoics saw our lives much the same way, with concentric circles of control radiating from our core. At the center, our thoughts, choices, and actions. Further out, the unpredictable world of external events, other people's opinions, even the weather. Epictetus framed this with brutal clarity. We control our reasoning, but not what happens to us. The boundary between the two is the only real power we possess. Most of us exhaust ourselves splashing in the outer circles, trying to change colleagues, fix systemic problems overnight, or rage against delays we can't undo. The result: frustration drains our energy, leaving little for where we actually wield influence. The Stoic antidote: a ruthless audit of your daily efforts, shifting focus from what's wrong to what's mine to fix. Here's how to map your circles today. 1. The inner circle control. List 3 things fully within your command: your morning routine, how you prepare for meetings, the tone you use with loved ones. These are your levers, pull them deliberately. 2. The middle ring influence. Identify areas you can shape but not dictate. Team morale at work, a friend's receptiveness to advice, even your health through habits. Invest here strategically, but release attachment to outcomes. 3. The outer sphere, no control. Acknowledge what's beyond your reach. Stock markets, strangers' judgments, flight cancellations. These aren't your burdens to carry. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. Modern leaders, from coaches to CEOs, use this model to combat burnout. A surgeon can't control a patient's genetics, but she can master her scalpel skills. A writer can't force readers to love his work, but he can hone each sentence. The lesson isn't to stop caring about the wider world, but to redirect your efforts where they'll actually land. Try this tonight. Review a current frustration and ask, which circle does this live in? If it's outer, mentally hand it back to the universe like returning a misdelivered package. If it's inner, draft one small action to address it tomorrow. Over time, this sorting becomes automatic, and you'll find reserves of energy you never knew you had, because influence isn't about the size of your reach. It's about the precision of your grip on what's truly yours to hold. And when you tighten that focus, something unexpected happens. The outer noise fades and your inner power amplifies. Strategy 46. The Stoic mantra words that anchor your mind in the storm. Epictetus handed his students 2 words that could steady them through any crisis: bear and forbear. In modern terms, endure what you must, relinquish what you cannot change. The Stoics understood something neuroscience now confirms. The right phrase, repeated at the right moment, acts like a mental keel, keeping you upright when emotional waves threaten to capsize you. Think about the last time stress hijacked your focus. Your thoughts probably spiraled into chaos. This is unbearable. What if everything goes wrong? But imagine if instead a single sentence cut through the noise, one you'd pre-chosen for its grounding power. That's the magic of a Stoic mantra. It's not wishful thinking, it's cognitive reframing at lightning speed. When your mind starts racing, a well-worn mantra interrupts the pattern, like a friend grabbing your shoulders and saying, "Breathe, remember what matters." Here's how to craft yours today. 1. Mind the masters. Start with Epictetus, bear and forbear, Marcus Aurelius, the obstacle is the way, or Seneca's, this too shall pass. Test each aloud which resonates most when whispered under pressure. 2. Make it personal. Adapt ancient wisdom to your battles, chronic perfectionist. Try progress, not perfection. Overthinker, thoughts are not facts. 3. Stress test it next time tension flares. A traffic jam, a tough email. Repeat your phrase like a heartbeat. Notice how it creates space between feeling and reacting. History's resilient figures relied on this tool. Naval officer James Stockdale recited Epictetus' teachings in a POW camp. Modern athletes use mantras to stay focused mid-game. You don't need extraordinary circumstances, just the discipline to plant these words deep in your mind until they grow roots. Try this now. Pause and whisper your chosen phrase 3 times. Feel how it shifts your breath, your posture. That's the Stoic secret. Language doesn't just describe reality, it shapes it. And when you arm yourself with the right words, you carry an unshakable calm wherever you go. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to fight the storm, but to remember you've weathered worse. Strategy 47. The last time meditation. Finding the extraordinary in ordinary. Goodbyes. There's a hauntingly beautiful exercise tucked into Marcus Aurelius' Meditations that most of us overlook until it's too late. He writes, when you arise in the morning, think of how precious it is to wake at all, and that today's sunlight, this meal, even your child's laughter at bedtime could be your last experience of them. At first, this sounds melancholic, but here's the radical shift. When you treat mundane moments as if they're final encounters, they stop being routine and start glowing with urgency and wonder. Think about the last time you rushed through bedtime stories with your kids, mentally ticking off chores, or scarfed down a meal without tasting it, eyes glued to your phone. Now imagine knowing those were the final pages you'd ever read together, the last bite of that dish you'd ever take. Suddenly, the weight of presence settles over you like a heavy cloak. The Stoics called this the last time meditation, not to breed fear, but to dissolve autopilot living. Modern psychology reveals why this works. Our brains are wired to take the familiar for granted. The same neural pathways that make brushing your teeth effortless also blind you to its fleeting nature. But when you inject the hypothetical last time into an ordinary act, your commute, a coworker's joke, even the way your partner sighs when they're tired, you jolt yourself into acute awareness. It's like switching from grayscale to vivid color. Here's how to practice this without spiraling into gloom. 1. The daily finale. Pick one routine moment today, a coffee break, walking the dog, and pause to whisper, if this were the last, how would I want to experience it? Let that question slow your hands, sharpen your senses. 2. The bedtime pause. As you tuck in a child or turn off the light, consider, if tonight were the last time I could do this, what would I want them, or me, to remember? Not as morbid fantasy, but as a lens to spotlight love's quiet miracles. 3. The gratitude flash. When annoyance flares, a delayed train, a messy kitchen, flip the script. What if this inconvenience were the last time I encountered it? Suddenly, even frustration becomes a strange gift. This isn't about living in dread. It's about excavating joy from the bedrock of impermanence, that commute you resent. It's a pocket of solitude you'll one day miss, the teenager rolling their eyes at you, a fleeting echo of childhood already slipping away. As Marcus wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say. So tonight, as you rinse a dish or hear a familiar voice call your name, let the thought whisper, this might be the last time. Not to paralyze you, but to awaken you to the profound truth that the ordinary is already extraordinary, because it exists at all, because the deepest tragedy isn't that things end. It's that we so often fail to notice them while they're here, and noticing, that's where the real living begins. Strategy 48. The legacy consideration crafting eternity in everyday choices. Seneca posed a question that still echoes through the centuries. Why worry about parts of life when the whole of life lies in your hands? But he wasn't speaking of mere survival, he was pointing to something far grander. The Stoics believed each decision whispers into the future, rippling beyond our lifetimes in ways we can't always see. This final strategy isn't about grand monuments or your name in history books. It's about the quiet, relentless work of aligning today's choices with the echoes you hope they'll leave behind. Think of legacy not as something you leave, but as something you live moment by moment. The way you handle frustration when no one's watching, the patience you extend to a struggling colleague, the integrity you show when cutting corners would be easier. These aren't just personal victories, they're seeds planted in soil you may never walk on. Marcus Aurelius never intended his meditations to be published, yet his private reflections now guide millions. That's the paradox. The most enduring legacies are often the ones crafted without an audience. Here's how to make this tangible today. 1. The epitaph exercise. Imagine your tombstone or a social media memorial, if that feels more contemporary. What 3 words would you want etched there? Not achievements like wealthy or famous, but virtues: kind, courageous, unshakable. Now ask, does my last week reflect those words? 2. The daily legacy audit. Pick one routine moment, a team meeting, a family dinner, and pause beforehand. Think, if this were the only interaction posterity remembered, how would I want to show up? Not performatively, but authentically. 3. The ripple rule. Before reacting to stress today, ask, if someone learned this behavior from me, would it lift them up or weigh them down? Legacy isn't just what you teach intentionally, it's what you demonstrate unconsciously. Modern research validates this ancient practice. Studies on generational narratives show that families who consciously discuss their values, not just material inheritances, raise more resilient children. Companies with purpose beyond profit outperform their peers long-term. The common thread: they're playing the infinite game, where success isn't measured in quarters but in centuries. So try this now, right where you are. Choose one small action to align with your desired legacy. Maybe it's finally apologizing for that old grievance, donating silently to a cause you believe in, or simply listening, truly listening, to someone who needs to be heard. As Seneca reminded Lucilius, life is long enough if you know how to use it, because in the end, your legacy won't be the highlights people summarize at your funeral. It'll be the countless ordinary moments where you chose against inertia, against convenience, to be the person only you knew you could be. And that's how eternity gets built, one mindful breath, one stubborn act of goodness at a time. End of the 48 Stoic Strategies. Note: no cliched wrap-up or preview of future content, just a natural closing resonance, as if turning the last page of a well-worn manual you'll revisit often. The Stoic Mind Forged: how 48 strategies turn philosophy into unshakable clarity. After journeying through these 48 Stoic strategies, one truth becomes undeniable: mental sharpness isn't accident, it's a discipline. Like a blacksmith tempering steel, each technique from negative visualization to the view from above hammers away at impulsivity, refining your mind into a tool of precision. The Stoics didn't just ponder life's challenges, they crafted a playbook for meeting them with unwavering focus, and now that playbook is in your hands. At the heart of this system lie 4 pillars: control, knowing what's yours to command; perspective, zooming out from petty concerns; presence, anchoring in the now; and virtue, aligning actions with integrity. Together, they form what Marcus Aurelius called the inner citadel, a fortress of calm no external chaos can breach. But here's the secret: these aren't abstract ideals. They're muscles, and like any muscle, they grow stronger with repetition. So let's move from theory to practice. Your challenge: adopt just 3 of these strategies for the next 30 days. Not 48, that's a recipe for overwhelm. Start small but deliberate. Maybe it's the evening reflection to audit your day, the stoic pause before reacting, or voluntary discomfort to reset your tolerance for ease. Track the shifts. Notice how cutting mental clutter sharpens decision-making, or how premeditating obstacles steals your resolve. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. As Seneca wrote, "No wind favors the sailor who has no destined port." These strategies are your compass. Now we turn the mic to you. Which techniques resonated deepest? Share your 30-day experiment in the comments, the struggles, the breakthroughs, the moments of unexpected clarity. And if you're hungry for more Stoic wisdom to fuel your journey, hit subscribe. This isn't just about watching videos, it's about joining a community of modern philosophers putting ancient tools to work, because the sharpest minds aren't forged in isolation. They're honed through shared wisdom, relentless practice, and the courage to face life's grindstone with eyes wide open. Your mind is the one tool no one can take from you. So tend it with the discipline of a Stoic, and remember, the world needs more people who think clearly, act deliberately, and stand unshaken. Why not let that